off his foot. Nice steal by John Taylor. This kid's a player. Lays it up and in. How do you think this John Taylor is?
Hello, my name is Dick Pratt, and I'm happy and thrilled, actually, to be able to introduce to you, the viewing audience here on the Vineyard, and hopefully, eventually, around the world, something very special that took place here on Martha's Vineyard. A very simplistic thing, a very natural thing, a very American thing. It's all about the American game of basketball. We had an adult league here on the Vineyard for decades, and it was called the RCBL. I'll let you figure out as the show goes along what the RCBL was all about. But in basic terms, it was about something to do that was fun and constructive in the wintertime here on Martha's Vineyard. So with that said, welcome to the RCBL. On my left, I have Corley Maciel, otherwise known as the Commissioner. And on my right, I have Pat Mercier, the head of all the referees over the years in what became known as the RCBL. Originally, and I've got some notes, it was the Recreational Center Basketball League, but it became to be known as the Robin and Corley Basketball League out of respect, or actually fooling around, with Corley and a woman named Robin Wingate. And they picked it up back in the early 1980s. The real origination of the league started with Bob Tankard and Elmer Silva, and they ran it for a while, about a year. And as that thing came to a close, Corley and Robin picked up the ball, how about that, and ran with it. So Corley, you as the commissioner, welcome to the show. It's going to be about us. This is an us thing. This is an island thing. Corley's an island guy, and you had a plumbing business for a while. And why don't you say hello to the folks and tell them how you got this thing started?
Well, Dick, thanks for having me on, and it really was by accident. I had no inclination of starting to be a commissioner. My forte, as you know, was playing hoop. I was just junkie, just like you, just like Pat. And one day, Robin came up to me, and we started a dialogue, and then I started phone calls, and, you know, it came to be its own life.
Its own life. Did you go back to Bob and to Elmer and ask them for their help to get it going?
Bob was a help. Elmer was a player, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But those two guys originally started it. It wasn't the RCBL as you once referred to, but they were a big help in getting the ball lifted. And
you had to say that, right?
Yeah, well, it's part of the tapes. But then it grew. We had a lot of people. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Pat, Robin. It was a whole host of people that devoted their time. Yeah. And I gotta be honest with you, their time was valuable because they could have been doing anything.
Anything they wanted.
But they, you know, Mondays and Tuesdays, they were always there. And then we went into TV and All-Star games, and we had a whole match full of stuff.
How did Pat come into it?
Well, me and Pat differ on this.
Okay.
But there was sort of a brouhaha, a skirmish on the court between a fellow official and a player who will be nameless, and the guy walked off.
The guy walked off, and he walked on?
Well, after some convincing to me.
Is that right?
He didn't really know he was walking on.
Pat, wait a minute. Pat, did you walk on or what?
Yeah, I'm just sitting in the stands watching the game, and all of a sudden this thing went down, and referee stormed out, and next thing I know, Corley's coming over to me with a whistle in his hand.
Oh, you actually had a whistle?
Yeah, Pat,
oh, wow.
Can you help us out?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, sure, why not? Let's go for it. And
did that lead to something, Pat? That's a leading question, by the way, folks. Did that lead to something, Pat?
Yes, it eventually got me started into high school basketball refereeing, and I'm just finishing up about a 30-year career of officiating high school basketball, and it's been a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people and a lot of great kids and coaches, and I don't regret a second of it.
So the RCBL was kind of a springboard to that career.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great.
Gentleman by the name of Al Faria, who's a basketball guru on Cape Cod, run leagues forever, saw me reffing one of the RCBL games and suggested I get certified, and I took it off and went from there.
That's fantastic. So, Corley, where did it begin? Where was the Tisbury? You have some nicknames for the two venues that the.
This whole thing was a nickname. I mean, players had nicknames, but we called it.
Wait a minute. Did you have a nickname for me? Never mind. Never mind.
No, not on here.
Never mind.
But we started at the Tisdome.
The Tisdome.
The Tisbury.
Wait a minute now. You folks get that? The Tisdome, his invention.
And then it grew from there, but eventually we needed a bigger gym because the guys, it was basically you played three-quarter court, front court.
Okay.
And we needed a bigger court, so we ended up going to Eggtown, which was
Boys and Girls Club.
named the Egg Dome.
The Egg Dome. So you went from the Tisdome to the Egg Dome.
Yes.
What kind of a mind comes up with those kinds of nicknames? I think it's like right over here, folks, the commissioner. So as the league progressed, how many teams did it start with?
We had 8 teams, but the problem was we didn't have enough A players to fill the 8 teams. And that was the controversy in itself because we had guys like you. We had Stuart Kendall. We had a couple girls play, Kirsten Sweatberg, Gloria Mendez. We had average guys, the working class Joes that didn't pick up the ball like you and I did.
So there was a junkie class of players, and then there was an intermediate class of players, and then there were the folks that were coming along for the fun of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Would you, that describes it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we ended up having a draft.
Okay, describe that
for a
draft.
few
That was
years.
awesome.
Go ahead, Corley.
Well, we were in room 2 something in grade 2 class. The chairs were like half the size of what we were
I
sitting
remember the
on.
little dinky chairs, yeah.
And we had 8 captains, and we had the 3 commissioners. We all had a vote, and we put all the names on the board, and we ranked them.
Wait a minute, you said 3 commissioners.
Well, Pat was kind of your on-the-board commissioner.
Okay.
He had a vote,
Yep.
but originally it was Robin and I.
Okay.
But Pat was associated with the voting.
Okay.
So we rank all the players.
How far did the ranking go? A, B, C, D, that kind of thing?
Like 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
And we had all the players on the board. The captains would pick the players.
How did who made the first pick? How did they determine the first pick?
I believe that came out of like a hat.
Okay.
The one rule that we did have, the cops had a team.
The police.
Police.
Which police?
You
mean like island-wide?
Yeah, island-wide. They wanted to form their own team.
Okay.
So we all agreed. We had a place to a vote, and we all agreed. And the cops had their own team.
Okay. Who was the captain of the cops team? Do you remember?
Oh, I think it varied.
It did. The first one.
Well, I think my brother, Neil was one. We had Bobby Moore on the team.
So you're telling me that Neil Maciel, your cousin,
brother,
your brother, okay, was the first cop captain of a basketball team, and then he was followed by Bob Moore from the state police, right?
Yeah, Bob Moore. Yeah. We had every selection of towns for cops or police, as you like to say politely, we're on that team. Okay. And the reason being, they all wanted to be, be on one team
together. Yeah.
And so we all let them. We said no problem, and the guys would pick the rest of the teams.
Was there anybody from Gayhead?
The Wittis boys.
They call it Aquina now, but
Yeah.
The Wittis brothers.
I don't have a short list or a long list of who was on the team.
Yeah, it's a curious thing. Those guys.
Mark and Donnie Wittis played.
Don Wittis.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Yeah. Mark Wittis.
Mark.
Brother.
Yeah.
I don't know. Might have been a couple others. I can't remember.
Did David Vanderbilt?
Yeah, David Vanderbilt played.
Yeah.
Ricky Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Rick. Okay. Rick's a good kid. He was a good kid.
We had, like I said, an assortment of everybody you could think of, from car mechanics to plumbers.
To real estate guys.
To real estate guys, there you go. We had Mark Rivers play, we had George Tankard, Gary Maurice.
The Rougeau boys.
Yeah, Woody.
You know what, now that we're mentioning all these names, if we, the three of us, could go out into the community and tell the different guys that played that we're doing this show and bring them in here and have everybody have their input to what we're doing with this RCBL show. This is a great way to get started, and it really pleases me that you two guys showed up. One of the really neat things about the RCBL are the anecdotes, the stories, the things that you never expect to happen. And one time, I forget where it was, excuse me, either the Egg Dome or the Tiz Dome, I don't know which one, but Corley will fill us in. Laurie Fisher was videoing the game. And I believe it was maybe Mike McLaughlin and Corley were doing the announcing. And guess what happened? They ran out of audio. Corley, how did that go?
We didn't really run out of audio. We had no audio.
Like no audio.
But so Mike was my executive producer. He came up with the idea, why don't you guys do it live? Now, I wasn't really a live person at that time.
Wait a minute, you're live, you're alive, I can tell.
But it happened, went up to the old studio, and me and Pat grabbed a couple of microphones, and they aired the film. And Pat and I stood in front of the TV set and did the play-by-play.
So what happened is Pat Mercier and Corley Maciel did a voiceover watching a TV set, and then it went out to the public. That's an anecdote that only these guys know, and thanks for sharing that with us. That's a great story. Speaking of stories, I mean, Pat,
yes,
you were a referee for so long. Come up with a quickie little story that you remember, something that might, pique your memory as a story about the RC. I don't care if it's Tiz Dome, Egg Dome, or any dome you want to pick.
It was just reffing the teams is always fun because there's so many characters out there, and they're always chirping at you. And
what's chirping? What do you mean by chirping?
When you don't make a call, they're always in your ear and whatnot. And there's just a lot of funny times when guys would get on you, and you'd have to come back with a quick reply, and just everybody keep them laughing and keep them light, keep everything light. And it's just a lot of good times, and sometimes you had to take care of business and tee a few guys up.
What does that mean? Is that this business?
That's right, technical foul,
okay.
Yeah. And it's funny, there's one gentleman, even like 20 years later, he still gets on me about calling a technical foul.
Is that right? You want to mention who it is?
It was Manny
Nunez?
Nunez. Manny Nunez.
Manny Nunes?
Yeah, no, Nunez. Yeah. Every time I would see him, every time I would see him, no matter where it was, he's like, point at me like,
So that was what it was about.
Oh yeah, funny stuff. A lot of great times with the guys.
Were there any standouts in the area of the technical foul?
Any standouts?
Yeah.
There was a few that were regular customers.
You got me a couple of times. You did. And by the way, I want to never mind.
My theory, Nick, was always give them enough rope.
Yeah.
Let them dig themselves a nice deep ditch, and then you got to take care of business.
I love it. So who else was reffing with you?
Oh, there was a whole bunch. Corley ref for a little bit. He was famous for the loose ball foul motion.
The what?
Loose ball in the NBA. They go like this.
Right.
That was his signature move. And we had Jerry Maciel, Kabuki, John Rogers, Sr.
Oh, Big John.
Yeah, John Rogers,
Let's talk
Sr.
about Big John for a minute. Let's focus on Big John.
Sure.
Because he was a guy that was older at the time. Johnny might have been, how old? In his late 50s at that time?
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah, maybe even in his 60s. Yeah. And as I recollect John, he had two sons.
Yep. Johnny.
Dale and Johnny, and Johnny and Dale. And they were both players. And Big John would put that shirt on, and he became another person. Is that right, Pat?
Oh yeah, he was a great guy. Did a nice job reffing. He had his moments, but he taught me a lot about reffing and how to communicate with the players and and have a good attitude, and I learned a lot from John.
He used to kid around with me. Big John Rogers used to kid around with me because I was the other old guy. Was I about the oldest guy?
I think so.
Anyway, when Big John used to run by, and when I was on the bench, which was quite often, anyway, he'd run by and he'd say, "So what'd you think of that call?" And I'd say, "John, come on, man, no." And he'd get all kind of frazzled about it. But Johnny Rogers was a real benchmark kind of guy.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
great
he sure
guy.
was.
We were lucky to have him.
Who else?
Let's see. Richie Roy, ref for a while.
Yep.
Michael Lynch, ref for a while. Who else ref, Corley? Can you come up with any?
Well, Robin refed a little bit.
Robin Wingate ref, yeah.
In the early years.
Yeah.
Like you said, Kabuki. I think sometimes we had to replace the refs that couldn't make it with somebody
else. Yeah. You mentioned Robin, by the way, and having a woman referee in basically a men's league. Were there any women players?
We had two in the earlier years, Gloria Mendez, as Pat mentioned, and Kirsten Sweatberg, who was a pretty good player. But the girls, it wasn't really set up for the girls to play, but I give them all the credit. They came out, they paid their due, and they played. And we had a thing that the players had to play equal minutes.
Okay.
So the A players, I like to, like Elmer and Dale and
Bobby Moore and
all those guys.
Yeah.
Johnny Healy.
Yep, Johnny.
They sat while players like
Other
Dr. Kendall
Yeah.
would get in. And
I remember he used to heave it. He'd heave it pretty
Doc.
good. He had the backboard down.
Oh, he was good.
Yeah.
But it was.
He was a good guy too.
Absolutely.
I mean, no cheap fouls. Stu Kendall was a guy that he's a classy kid.
Well, he won Sportsman of the Year our last year when we had the banquet.
Yeah.
And he was a good guy, and he, we used to have talks on the side, and he understood that he wasn't a great player. But he liked to play hoop.
He was there.
He liked to play hoop. And a lot of the people there just liked to play hoop, whereas some of the players took it one step further.
Yeah.
It was life or death. You missed the call. How could you do that?
Okay. You never missed one, did you, Pat?
Oh, there's
Right.
plenty.
Yeah. There's a lot of reminders out there. You know, guy just popped into my mind. Did Peter Knight ever play in the league?
For a little bit. I think in the later years.
He was
Pete
tough
played.
inside, that kid.
Yeah.
He was tough.
Yeah.
And Carl, big tall Carl, he's still here on the island.
No, not
No.
Carl.
Well,
works for Oakleaf.
Carl Willis played in the league.
Oh, Carl, yeah.
Okay, but the Carl I'm thinking of is a big, tall Kasanich, is his
Something
name?
like
Something
that.
Oh,
like that?
yeah, he played in Eggatown.
He was
Carl
very-
K.
He was very good.
Big guy.
Yeah,
Good player.
absolutely.
Fill the middle.
Oh,
Yeah, he
without a
really
doubt.
could. So while we're filling the middle on this, is there anything you could think about that we might have missed?
I don't know. What do you think?
I got a good one for you.
Oh, God.
What's
Here
that,
we go.
Dixie?
And he should remember it because he was in there with me. Do you remember painting the three-point line?
Oh, yeah, we wanted to put
In
a
the-
three-point line of Tisbury.
And he crafted the arc really well. And we picked Tisbury colors, which was, I think, yellow at the time, right?
Yeah, yellow and blue, yeah.
And we were all proud about it. We spent, off hours doing it, and the principal gave us, the go-ahead. Then the principal saw it, and he didn't like it.
Who was the principal?
Remember at the time.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
I can't recall that, but we had to take it off.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that
Which,
wasn't easy.
and you got a quart, and you got paint, and
Did you have both ends down?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
we had to take it off.
Yeah.
Eventually, we got a company in from the Cape that put the black three-point line in.
Okay.
Me and him are in there like 10 o'clock at night going,
Scraping it down. Yeah, that was no fun.
Isn't that something? There's another anecdote,
That
folks.
was no fun.
The RCBL three-point lines would put down. The principal didn't like it. Get him out of there.
Yeah, and then eventually they hired a company from off island to come in
Yeah.
and do it professionally, and it looked really great.
Are those still there at the Tisbury
Yeah.
School?
Yes, oh yeah.
So they're still there.
The three-point line,
An
yeah.
indelible mark by the RCBL at the Tisbury School. Pretty cool.
You want a funny referee story? Ask Corley about double technical foul on his brother.
I thought we were going to keep it clean.
That was one of the
Who
funniest.
did that? Who
Corley-
teched him? You teched your brother?
That was one of the funniest
Oh.
games ever. Oh my goodness.
My brother had a hard day that
He had more than one hard day.
and the refereeing he wasn't particularly happy with,
Okay.
in particularly me. So I gave him one tee, and he said, I'm up by the door by the water cooler. They're down by the visiting seats. And he goes, why don't you give me another one? I said, bang.
Okay.
And ejected him.
And you threw him out?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, we had fines.
That's brotherly love.
Fines?
You know?
Yeah, if you got thrown out, the first time was $5, second time was $10, third
That sounds
time
like
was
an island thing, doesn't it?
the third time was 15, and after that, you didn't come back.
Oh, boy.
We only had guys I think got two fines.
Yeah.
They
Two.
never made it up to 15.
But that was funny though that night. Oh my goodness.
One of the cheapest fouls ever called on me was on your brother. And somebody called me for a reach.
Yeah.
And you had to give a guy like me, a slow, older guy, you got to give an old guy the reach.
Yeah.
And so your brother had the ball, and he almost like didn't know what to do with it. Sorry, Neil. And he was fumbling around, and I reached in there, and I didn't get there. I was like away, and somebody blew a whistle. And I looked around.
Probably me.
Yeah, could have been. Could have been. But your brother and I, we played some ball together. We're talking about Neil Maciel, folks. Local island guy. What's he doing now?
He has a
Driving.
instruction business.
Driver ed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of fun.
I'm glad I already got my license. I've had it a while.
After
I've
that
had it a
talk, you
while.
wouldn't get one.
Yeah, with him. Oh, boy. So that's good. These stories are really a lot of fun.